Something is in my apartment right now. It's using my voice. I don't know if I'm still the one writing this, but I need you to hear what happened. Because what I did, what I broke, it's not staying contained to me anymore. It's coming for all of US. And it started with a house that had no right to exist. Set up. My name is Phil. In the Urbex community, they call me Pill. Urban exploration. Breaking into abandoned buildings, mines, hospitals, airfields, places the world forgot. If you've never done it, I can't explain what it does to you. That feeling of being a kid again, chest tight with wonder, hands shaking as you peel back the skin of a forgotten place. I've been doing it since I was 15, when I climbed through an open window into what I thought was an abandoned shack on the reservation. Turns out a man still lived there. He held me at gunpoint until the cops showed up. Juvie at 15. Probation. A record. Didn't stop me. I live in Casa Grande, Arizona. If you know it, you know there's nothing there. Desert, heat, dust, and the slow suffocation of a town that peaked 40 years ago. Urbex wasn't a hobby for me. It was survival. The only thing that made me feel alive. What I would give now, to have never picked it up. It was a Wednesday. I'd just spent 4 hours alone inside an abandoned gold mine. A buddy had texted me the GPS coordinates, and I was climbing back out into the afternoon sun, feeling good. No alarms, no cops, no complications. Just me in the dark, and the smell of old earth. Then I saw the trees. Tips of oak leaves, waving at me from behind a ridge. Healthy, full oaks. In the Arizona desert. There isn't a tree like that for 100 miles in any direction, just those wiry, sun-starved things that look more like apologies than trees. These were real. Big and green, and full of sound. I crested the hill. Below me, cut into a dead desert gorge like a wound, was a single acre of lush forest. Green grass. Wildflowers. Overlapping root systems from oaks that had no business being alive out here. The rustle of leaves in the wind, a sound so out of place it almost hurt to hear it. And in the center of it, a house. Wrong. The word arrived before the image fully processed. The building was wrong. 2 stories, no more, slanted like it had been partially swallowed by the earth. Windows weren't square but torn open, jagged gashes in the timber covered by sun-bleached tarps. A room on the 2nd floor hung in open air with nothing beneath it. At the peak of the roof, an enormous church bell sat rusting in the sun. I stood there for a long time. Then I went down. I know how that sounds. I know. But if you were standing on that ridge looking at something that defied every law of architecture, every law of reason, you'd want to know too. That's not stupidity. That's being human. The closer I got, the worse it felt. Not fear, exactly. Rage. Blind, sourceless fury that crept into my skull and beat against the inside of my temples. My heartbeat turned into a war drum. I found a mailbox at the edge of the tall grass, Marrow spelled out in peeling stick-on letters, and checked it. Packed with bills. Foreclosure notices. And greeting cards. Dozens of them, all addressed to H. Marrow, each sender's name replaced by an identical oily black smear. One was from Portland. One from Brazil. One from a place called Lacephalus, a city of black rock towers, blurred figures with arms too long for their bodies, a massive clock tower in the center. Black and white photo. The sky had a strange cracking pattern running through it, like shattered glass. I searched for Lacephalus later. It's not from any movie, any book, any game. It doesn't exist. The reverse image search returned nothing. The house groaned. Timbers cracking, wet and deep, like joints in the body of something very old. I screamed at it to shut up. I don't know why I did that. The words came out before I knew I'd formed them. I went in anyway. The front door appeared on a porch that hadn't been there on my first pass around the building. Fresh maroon paint. A brass knocker shaped like a deer's head, onyx eyes, and whale-flat teeth. I grabbed the handle. The rage dropped off the moment I crossed the threshold. Gone. Like shedding a coat at the door. Inside, an open atrium, a spiral metal staircase climbing 50 feet into darkness. The rooms that should have been above me weren't, just the ceiling far overhead, 8 mismatched ceiling fans spinning close enough to almost collide but somehow never touching. Against the far wall, a grandfather clock the size of a wardrobe, bolted to the floor with industrial hardware. Iron beams braced it from the sides, like someone had needed to restrain it. The clock face had 24 hours. Each hour was a triangular panel containing a tiny, impossibly detailed oil painting. Hours 1 through 8, meadows, calm water, a fawn resting in a flower field. Hours 9 through 18, deserts, dying towns, faceless figures with blurred proportions. I couldn't see their faces, but I knew they were crying. Hours 19 through 23, war, death, pestilence. Brown and gray and black broken only by red. The 24th panel had a title that rose unbidden in my mind, clear as if it had been spoken aloud. Annihilation. I won't describe it in full. I can't. What I'll tell you is that the longer I stared, the larger the painting seemed to grow, more suffering spreading into space that shouldn't have existed in a 2-foot triangle. And at the center of it, in ruins, was the city from the greeting card. Las Cephalis. Burning. The room changed while I was staring. It does that, closes its eyes and opens them as something new. I'd covered my face in disbelief a few times and each time found a different room waiting. Now I was surrounded by ceramic faces, dozens of them, between forest of spiral staircases. Tiny pots. 4-foot masterworks. All of them breakable. All of them loud if broken. And above me, footsteps. Slow. Methodical. The tap creak of a cane on metal grating. I lowered myself into the largest vase and pulled the lid shut. The footsteps came down. A man's voice, ancient, dry as chalk. Vases, vases, must you torment me so? His cane struck one. Then another. Each one exploding into 100 ceramic shards. Each impact closer. I pressed myself small, barely breathing. He passed. I risked a look. He was the oldest man I have ever seen. Shorter than small, bent nearly horizontal at the spine. Liver-spotted scalp. The definition of his vertebrae visible through skin so thin it was nearly transparent. He carried a briefcase. He wore nothing. His feet bled from the shards on the floor, and he didn't notice. He opened the briefcase at the clock. Inside, tools unlike anything I could name. Winding pipes, opalescent metal spirals, a tiny carved wooden head that was so realistic I flinched when I first saw it. He took the head and began moving it in slow arcs before the clock face, chanting quietly. The house groaned. The walls flexed inward and out. The bell rang from somewhere far above. Then the clock relaxed. A panel opened in the mahogany, no seam had shown before. Inside, a mess of machinery. Gears, pistons, LED displays, mechanisms I couldn't identify. Technology that hadn't been invented yet side by side with mechanisms from centuries ago. Every component moving in perfect synchrony, nothing touching, nothing colliding, a ballet of metal in impossible proximity. I nearly climbed out of the vase to get closer to it. Something about the inside of that clock made me want to be inside it. To find my place in the order, to become part of something that precise and perfect. I didn't. But I should have stayed quiet. I didn't do that either. Hello? The old man startled. The key dropped from his fingers. He turned. One step backward in terror, that was all. The clock didn't need more than that. The mechanism erupted. Every component fanned outward like a net cast over still water. Wires, impossibly fine, impossibly sharp, seized the back of his skull before he could turn back. They punctured skin, tunneled under muscle, wrapped the bone in an inward cocoon. No blood. The clock didn't waste a single drop. His face went gray. His eyes shriveled in their sockets, dangling by their cords. His skin went loose from the flesh beneath. His lips cracked to paper. I couldn't scream. I just watched. Spluttering, useless, too horrified to move. The clock consumed him piece by piece. Pistons took the place of bone. Copper wire wrapped in muscle fiber filled the hollow places. Organs walked out of his open chest cavity on clockwork spider legs and settled into compartments in the machine. His heart remained, transplanted to the clock center, still beating. And then, the machine put him back together. Taller. Refilled with gears and levers instead of organs. Skin cracking to show brass workings beneath. The tiny mechanical arms that had lived at the top of the clock punched through his eye sockets and reached toward me from the holes they'd made. I closed my eyes. When I opened them, the room had returned to what it was when I'd arrived. The vases were gone. The staircases were gone. The clock sat in its brackets, vibrating hard enough to rattle the iron beams. On the 24th panel, behind the slowly approaching hands, I could see the painting had changed. The old man was in it now, pulling his own chest cavity open to show only clockwork inside. The thing that used to be Harold Marrow was trying to speak. Gusts of air moving through what had been his lungs, lips flapping, jaw clacking. It found one word before I ran. Go. The mechanical arms pointing at the open door. At trees. At sunlight. The clock was minutes from the 24th hour. I ran. Past the carved wooden faces and the roots, all of them now twisted into rage. Past the mailbox, now surrounded by greeting cards cascading out in an endless stream, every single one reading, "Greetings from Locephalus." I drove home. I don't remember the drive. Living felt wrong. Breathing felt like something I borrowed from someone else. I'm a coward. I knew what would happen when the clock reached hour 24. I knew, and I ran anyway. That was several days ago. I went back to the Marrow property. The house was gone. The trees were gone. Only the mailbox remained, buried in greeting cards from a city that doesn't exist. At home, the clockwork started appearing. Small pieces first, gears, brackets, wire. Then constructions. A dead crab with animatronic claws, locked in the bathtub. A severed deer head that moves on segmented clockwork tubes and whispered my name while I was boarding up the cupboard. It's learning. It's improving with each attempt. And now, something heavy is in my apartment. It knocked. Then it scratched. Then it kicked through a wall. It has my voice. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't be afraid, brothers and sisters. The obsidian spires are beautiful this time of year. The clock is waiting. The clockwork is so much freer than flesh, you'll wonder why you ever bothered with skin and bone. Come find the Marrow house. It will find you first, if you hesitate. We will all be made one. Come home to Los Cephalus.